Okay, so it's a brand new year, but it's also a brand new quarter. And so you know what that means. It's time to see what's in my wallet for the first quarter of 2025. Now, this is going to be a good one because my setup has been overhauled with the US Bank Smartly card now being part of my core credit card setup. And so yes, it's time to say goodbye to my previous catch-all credit card, which was the Bank of America Premium Rewards Elite card. So in this video, I'm going to go over what's in my wallet, my updated US Bank Smartly strategy to qualify for that 4% cash back, and how all this affects my position and outlook with Bank of America. So to start, let's review what my previous core credit card setup looked like last year so we can get a full appreciation of what this new setup will look like. The main card, of course, is the US Bank Altitude Reserve that gets me a 4.5% cashback equivalent on my mobile wallet spending. The Built MasterCard was for 3x points back on non-mobile wallet dining and for 1x points back on rent. The Bank of America Customized Cash Rewards card was for online shopping, and since I'm in the Platinum Honors tier, I get 5.25% cash back on those purchases on up to $2,500 per quarter. And the Bank of America Premium Rewards Elite credit card was used to earn 3.5x points back on transit purchases and 2.625x points back on everything else. Now, I get a lot of questions about how effective really is this credit card setup for my household, and I decided to audit my expenses to show you how this worked out for us in fiscal year 2024. So I'm about to show you how the spending breakdown looked like, and just to be clear, this is just for typical everyday expenses only, things like restaurants, groceries, and gas. This does not include expenses like air travel or hotels, since I use other cards for those expenses, and I also took out my rent from the Built card, so this card only reflects non-mobile wallet dining. And so with that in mind, here's the chart. You can see that the Altitude Reserve was 48.3% of my total everyday expenses, which can also be interpreted as purchases I made exclusively with Apple Pay. The Built MasterCard was 14.8% of my total everyday expenses, which is the amount I spent exclusively on non-mobile wallet dining. The Bank of America Customized Cash Rewards card was 11.2% of my total everyday expenses, which is the amount I spent exclusively on online shopping. And the Bank of America Premium Rewards Elite credit card was 25.7% of my total everyday expenses, reflecting my transit purchases and the everything else category. Now, moving forward in 2025, I'll be using the US Bank Smartly card as my catch-all card, earning 4% cash back on everything. And that's going to result in two specific changes to my core credit card setup. The first is that, of course, I'll be replacing my Premium Rewards Elite credit card with the US Bank Smartly card. The second is that I'm going to be taking my Built MasterCard out of the core setup and just put 4 very small transactions on it so I can earn points on that 1x rent category. If you were to ask me if I'd rather earn 4% cash back or 3x Built points from restaurant spending, my answer would be 4% cash back, especially if I can eliminate one card from my core setup because simplicity matters. Of course, if you redeem your Built points for the right redemption, they could certainly be worth way more than just a 4% cashback equivalent. But for our household, the only reason why this card still matters is the 1x rent category. So as long as we get those points, this card can stay out of the wallet and just be sock drawered with those 4 extra transactions. So if I eliminate the Built MasterCard from this chart here, I can combine the Premium Rewards Elite percentage with the Built MasterCard percentage, and this becomes 40.5% of my total spending. Now, if we disregard online purchases using the Customized Cash Rewards card, we can say, well, I spend a little more than half my everyday expenses on Apple Pay and a little less than half on non-mobile wallet spending. So then the question becomes, well, should I even keep the US Bank Altitude Reserve? While this card is very good, and I love it, as you all know, this card still comes with a $400 annual fee. Now, this annual fee is offset by a very flexible $325 travel and dining credit, making the true effective annual fee on this card $75. Still, that's $75 more than I like to spend. So should I cancel the US Bank Altitude Reserve and just use the US Bank Smartly credit card for everything? Well, if we do some simple math and we take the benefits of the Altitude Reserve out of the equation, you're really just paying $75 for the benefit of half a percentage point more in cash back. That is, the AR gets 4.5% and the Smartly card gets 4%. So $75 divided by that half percentage point means that you'd have to spend at least $15,000 in a year on this card to get net positive value from it, just looking at the multipliers. And so if I look back at my own expenses in 2024 on the Altitude Reserve, I certainly met this threshold and then some, so it makes sense for me. But what if you're in a situation where you've spent less than $15,000 on your US Bank Altitude Reserve. Now the math would show you that you're losing value, so it's a no-brainer to cancel the card, right? Well, it's not that simple, and let me explain why. The first thing is that the US Bank Smartly card has a 3% foreign transaction fee, so it's only useful for domestic purchases. And the mobile wallet option such as Apple Pay is accepted in many foreign countries. And since the Altitude Reserve has no foreign transaction fees, this provides an additional card that could be nice to use abroad, especially as a Visa Infinite card. The second thing to realize is that US Bank is known to nerf their cards when they feel like it. And so this card may make 4% cash back now, but who knows how long that's going to last. Can you imagine canceling the US Bank Altitude Reserve and then shortly after US Bank nerfs the Smartly card to be just a 3% or even just a 2.5% cashback card? I mean, how pissed would you be? I'd be pretty pissed, especially because as of the recording of this video, the US Bank Altitude Reserve is still closed off to new applications with no sign of returning anytime soon. So my take on this is that for the reasons above, keeping the US Bank Altitude Reserve is very important, regardless of spending breakdown, because you don't want to be caught off guard when US Bank pulls some of that kind of nonsense. The next thing I want to point out on this chart is that the customized cash rewards card was 11.2% of my spending, which means that online shopping only accounted for about 10% of my total everyday expenses in 2024. And when I broke down the online shopping category for each quarter, the highest it ever got was in the fourth quarter of 2024, which makes sense because of that holiday shopping season. For me, my total expenses in that quarter, and this is pretty cool, was $2,499.44, which is just under that $2,500 quarterly threshold for that 5.25% cashback. So for now, we've only needed to use one customized cash rewards card to cover that category, but my wife has another one of those cards as well, so that's available if necessary. But because this card isn't really being used, for this next quarter, I'm going to slot it into our core setup as a primary gas card to get 5.25% cashback on that category. And we don't even have to carry the card since we can use it with Apple Pay at gas stations, including at Costco, which is where we usually get our gas from anyways. And we definitely spend well below the $2,500 quarterly threshold in the gas category. So this is another easy way for us to earn just a little bit more on our gas purchases, because last year we were earning just 4.5x using the Altitude Reserve. Now, does this make our core credit card setup a little more complicated? Well, yes, just a little bit. But it's a small change that doesn't take much effort, especially since the card will exist on Apple Pay anyways. So knowing all of this, here's what's going to be in my wallet for the first quarter of 2025. We have the US Bank Altitude Reserve earning us 4.5% cashback equivalent on our mobile wallet spending. We have our first Bank of America customized cash rewards card earning 5.25% cashback on online shopping. We have our second Bank of America customized cash rewards card earning us 5.25% cashback on gas. And we have the US Bank Smartly credit card earning us 4% cashback on all other purchases. So that's a pretty strong setup in my opinion, and the best part is there's only one card with an annual fee, which is the Altitude Reserve at $75. Of course, I have a lot of other cards with annual fees, but these cards are mainly used for their benefits, with very little spending going on these cards. So I'm gonna roll with this setup this quarter to see how I like it, and we'll see how that goes. Another thing I'll say about this setup is that it's not really optimized for traveling abroad, as the only card without foreign transaction fees is that US Bank Altitude Reserve. Now, until I find a better alternative, my catch-all card will be my IHG Premier Business card, since it earns 3x IHG points back on all purchases with no foreign transaction fees. Honestly, I'd really like to use my Hilton Honors card for this purpose, but since it's an American Express card, I can't really use it abroad as a 2 catch-all credit card because of limited acceptance. Okay, so that's the setup, but there's still a few loose ends to tie up here. I made a video several months ago that went over my strategy on how I was going to get 4% cash back with the US Bank Smartly credit card. And in that video, I said that I was going to use US Bank Smartly savings accounts as my accounts for my emergency fund and my house down payment fund, which would then meet the $100,000 threshold to earn that bonus 2% on the Smartly credit card. Well, since that video came out, US Bank dropped their savings account APY from 4% down to 3.5%, which is not too bad, but it's certainly not the best. Other savings accounts, like the one from Wealthfront, for example, gives you a much higher base APY rate of 4.25% for uninvested cash in their cash management account. So simply put, it doesn't make sense for me to keep my money in US bank savings accounts since I could earn so much more in other savings accounts with much higher APYs, especially if we're talking about $100,000 in cash. So this brings me to my new strategy of doing what was the ultimate goal all along, which was to open a US bank investment account to meet this asset requirement. Now, their self-directed investment account is much more limited than the one offered from Merrill at Bank of America. But for the purposes of just buying and holding an S&P 500 ETF, which is what I'm going to do, this account will do just fine. And since my last video, there have been multiple data points on Reddit suggesting that all you need is $100,000 in assets in the brokerage account to avoid the $50 annual fee. On US Bank's website, it also states that you may avoid the brokerage annual fee if you have $250,000 in household assets, but that's probably not relevant to most of us. But something else that's important to know is that this annual fee is charged at the end of the 12 months, so you have a full year to get the account to 100K before that fee hits. I originally found this out from Alexia72, who made this post on Reddit, and I additionally called US Bank customer service, who verified this same information. So in my case, I don't have the extra funds to get an investment account immediately to $100,000. But over the course of this year, I plan to convert my funds gradually from my US Bank savings accounts into my new US Bank brokerage. And while doing this, I'll continue to replenish those converted funds over time into a high yield savings account that earns a higher APY than the one offered by US Bank. Now, another possibility is that I could take my $100,000 of assets in Merrill and ACATS transfer that directly into a new US Bank brokerage, but it's still important to be platinum honors with Bank of America, and let me explain why that's the case. Now, don't get me wrong. As it stands now, the US Bank Smartly card is a much better card than the Premium Rewards Elite card when it comes to the multiplier earnings at the 4% level. But like a lot of you, I'm concerned that the US Bank Smartly card may be nerfed at any time. And if that's the case, I want to keep my Platinum Honor status as a backup when this happens. With this status, not only do the Premium Rewards and PR Elite credit cards have a very respectable 2.625% cashback on all purchases, but both cards also have no foreign transaction fees, which is a huge drawback on the US Bank Smartly credit card. As you saw earlier, I also want to harness the power of the customized cash rewards card and its 5.25% cashback multiplier, so I'll continue to be Platinum Honors with Bank of America for the foreseeable future. So, as you probably expected, this is the year I'll be downgrading the Premium Rewards Elite credit card to another customized cash rewards card, which will be my third. This will give our household added flexibility if we need another customized cash rewards card to pad the 5.25% online shopping category or any of the other categories offered on that card, as well as eliminate that current $550 annual fee that I have on that Premium Rewards Elite credit card. Now, if the US Bank Smartly card gets nerfed, I can always apply for a new Bank of America Premium Rewards card, which has a much smaller $95 annual fee. And since this card has the same exact multipliers as the Premium Rewards Elite credit card, this will end up being perfect because not only am I paying a lower annual fee, but this card also has no foreign transaction fees, so that problem will be solved as well. Now, I say all of this, but my genuine hope is that US Bank keeps the 4% cashback rate on the Smartly card for as long as possible, but we'll just have to see how long that lasts. And with this in mind, I want to bring up a very important point. Credit cards will come and go, some cards will be upgraded, some will be nerfed, and some will just stop being useful as you move on in your life. Even though it's great to have a solid core credit card setup, always remember to have a backup plan or an alternate strategy so you can pivot quickly. For me, US Bank is making a gamble with the US Bank Smartly card, and so am I with my own core credit card setup. But if US Bank decides to nerf the Smartly card, I'll still have Bank of America and their credit card lineup to fall back on. Even though these cards aren't flashy, they have been otherwise consistent and reliable compared to other issuers. And it's not like I'm abandoning Bank of America anyways. They still have 2 of the 4 cards in my core credit card setup, so they'll certainly get a portion of my everyday spending as well. Okay, so those are the cards that'll be in my wallet for the first quarter of 2025. Again, a lot of changes here, but I'm really looking forward to seeing how this new setup works out for our household. And since you made it to the end of this video, I have a special message since I know you're a loyal viewer. You may have noticed that I have a completely new setup here. Now, don't worry, my old setup is still around, but as I'm continuing to travel frequently for work, I decided to build a second YouTube studio so I can film when I'm off-site. This is going to add a lot more flexibility for me to make more videos for you and, change things up a little bit. So right now we're not really working with that much decor, but if you have any suggestions for the space, please let me know down in the comments below. And if you want to see me apply for the US Bank Smartly credit card and how that application process went, check out this video next.